Hi, welcome back. My name is Kelly.
And I'm McCarty.
This week is the last week in our Henry VIII series, The Wives of Henry VIII, because we go and see Six the Musical next
week.
Thursday. I'm very excited about
Me
it.
too.
So
I cannot wait.
This is the last of this is Katherine Parr. I'm also just excited to do other things besides this
has
one,
been like 6 weeks.
this one time period,
Not that it hasn't been interesting, because
it's been fun.
It's been interesting.
It's been nice. I've liked it. It's nice getting.
I kind of want to branch out though.
Yeah, it's been nice to get like a refresher on the Wives for when we go see the play, but this will be nice to get it over with, and then we can start doing other things. So this week is our final Katherin, final of 3.
Third Katherin.
Katherine Parr is her name, and when I was researching all of this and doing all of the writing all of my notes or whatever, I don't know if Katherin is spelled with a K or a C for any of the Katherines. I don't know which they go by. It seems like they're interchangeable. So
yeah, it seemed to me when I read Allison Weir's book that it's debated, but Katherine Aragon of Aragon is with a K. But then everything I found about Katherine Howard was a C.
Everything that I saw in that same book was a K for Katherine.
Well, I saw for this Katherine specifically. In the Allison Weir book, I didn't use that source. I used the internet because I was at work and I didn't have the book ready with me. And it was like a C. So I don't know.
I have no idea. I think it could be either way. Anyway, her name is Katherine Parr. She was born in 1512 and she died in 1548. She was born, her parents are Sir Thomas Parr of Kendal and Maud Green. I know, right? He was
that seems very early. Like, that was such a 60s name that...
Maud?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was an old...
name that just became popular in the 60s.
Yeah. Anyway. He was an official of the court, and her dad, Thomas Parr, was a descendant of Edward III. So they're related. Distantly, but still.
Who isn't?
I mean, they're all related, so.
I think every single one of the wives have been cousins of the other ones.
So a few weeks ago, I mentioned Dr. Susie Edge on TikTok, and she just did a video, or at least I just saw the video again if she did it before, where she ties every one of the wives back to Edward
the Third.
She ties everyone, or William the Conqueror. She ties them all back to William the Conqueror,
which is the beginning of
1066.
Yeah. So which is the beginning of England as we know it.
Yeah.
The Norman kings.
So they're all related in some way. Okay, so she was born Catholic but later converted to Protestantism. I don't know if that's how you say it. But it seems like they were not for Lutheranism.
Why are you looking like that?
Higgins, what's with your mouth? Anyway, it seems like they were not for Lutheranism, but...
other branches.
Yeah, but they were still she was Protestant. She was
born
born
maybe she was
Catholic.
English Protestant?
Yeah. So she was part of the court for the other women, the other women had. So she was in ladies in waitings for the other wives, and she knew most of the other wives, it seems. Henry chose Katherine to be his next wife because all the other wives had been chosen for him by did he probably have a say in the marriages? Yes, but they were pushed on him by his advisors and by other people in his court. Whereas this one, he was this is who I'm gonna marry.
And then does it say anything about why he's even marrying a 6th time?
Yeah, so
because they're not even married that long before he dies.
So Henry picked Katherine on his own. They married 18 months after Katherine Howard. So there was a big gap between Katherine Howard and Katherine Parr. There was a long, longer than
even longer
any of the other
between
gaps.
Anne and Jane.
There wasn't much of a gap between
There was 2
Anne
years.
and Jane. Oh, Jane and Anne of Cleves.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry because Anne is before Jane also.
There might have been a bigger gap between, or a bigger gap, but either way, it's one of the bigger gaps.
Yeah, it's not 19 days like he married Katherine after Jane died.
Or like 2 weeks after, you know.
That's right.
So it was 18 months after the debacle with after the debacle with Catherine Howard's infidelity and all of the things that went on with her being, she was 17, which blows my mind. All of that stuff that happened. 18. There became a law that anyone who was to marry the king had to disclose any misconduct that could disqualify them.
Any sexual misconduct.
Any misconduct.
Okay.
That could disqualify them from being queen. So they had to disclose, prior to marrying the king, any misdeeds that they'd ever done.
Is it still within 20 days of the wedding?
I don't know. I think it just like...
Prior to.
Yeah. Anything that would... It's so dry in here. Anything that would disqualify them to be a queen.
Okay. Probably because of what he went through with Katherine.
Yeah, because of all of that. He didn't want to do that again.
Because if you don't know, if you didn't watch the other one, Katherine Howard had been... The whole reason she was beheaded was because she was in several sexual relationships, whether it was just sexual contact. She was groomed as a child.
Yeah.
And into
she was like 13, 14 when all this started.
Yeah. And so because of that, I think he's more wary and doesn't want another wife embarrassing him.
Yes, exactly. And people at this time, the pool for Henry to wed, the pool of women for him is very small, because women at court, after they made this law saying that any misdeeds you had to disclose, it disqualified a lot of the women in court, because
there's always misdeeds.
There was a lot of the women were not very virtuous, as they would say.
But also, who wants to be his wife?
Right? People.
Like, nobody wants their daughter. He's killed 2 women.
Women were hesitant. They were like, I don't think I really want to marry the king. Like, we saw what happened. He's done this 5 times.
But he's also killed 2 of them.
We saw what happened. Like, nobody wanted to do it. And then people thought that he wouldn't marry again because he had so many disastrous marriages to this point. They were like, he's not going to marry again.
He's a mockery. Like, he's already ridiculous.
At this time, he's like 50-something.
He dies when he's like 48.
No.
I don't believe you.
He dies when he's 57, I think.
Oh, maybe he dies in 48?
He dies at 55 in 1547.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking.
So he is older at this time. They were married for
like 3 years.
Yeah, they were married for a little while. So everyone thought that he was still healthy and virile and like well enough to sire children. And even though he had an heir with Edward, they were still like, we should still,
have an extra.
They thought maybe he would get
and this was before Parliament made stipulations that women can be the heir. Prior to this, they weren't heir. Like they weren't eligible to be the heir.
Sorry, I'm so tired.
Me too.
So overall, like, his leg was still acting up. He had a really bad temper. It seems like he couldn't control his anger. Like, he was mad. But overall, and his leg was acting up, but overall, they were like, he's still fit. He's still a fit king.
I can't imagine, with how fat he is, how his diet, all of that he would even be capable of.
Yeah, there was some time here and there that he was immobile.
Impotent.
Yeah, and that's what they believe. People are thinking that he maybe was impotent after this point, because he didn't have any children with his last 3 wives.
Well, even because I don't even think he had sex with Anne of Cleves. Mm-mm. But also Katherine, she's young. You'd think he would at least try to have sex with her to get an heir. But I don't know. I have a hard time believing that he wasn't impotent.
So his leg is acting up. Overall, the court thought that he was still fine. He's like, yeah, he can be married, he can have another kid, like, it's not a big deal.
They never want it known that there's anything wrong with the king.
Yeah. It's never the king's fault that they can't have a baby, it's always the woman's.
But
the woman is always barren. It's not the king's fault.
If the king is in poor health, they're not going to tell anyone. No. They're just going to, be like, oh yeah, he's just, like, he's fine, everything's fine. He has this huge gaping wound that is ulcerated, he's full of gout, he's probably diabetic, but he's fine, nothing's gonna happen to him. He's still, like, strong man.
Okay, so Edward was doing well at this point, but there was a question about his health, because he had been sickly in the past, and so they were like, just in case, we should get a backup.
And he becomes king at 5? 10. He becomes king at 10, so he's probably around 7.
Yeah, he's like 7 or 8. So they're like, hey, we should get another king. Another heir. And at this point, Anne of Cleves' brother William is like, you know what? That Katherine Howard didn't work out. You should just marry Anne again.
Like, Anne of Cleves.
Just marry Anne again. It'll be fine. She can be queen. And Henry was like, I don't want to do that. We're done with Anne. Because he didn't like her. He didn't think she was pretty enough to be queen. He didn't... they called her his sister, but he didn't like her. He was like, I don't want to be married to this. He was above all that.
Almost immediately upon them getting married, he didn't.
I mean, he was hesitant to even marry Anne. If you watched that video, he was like, I don't think I want to do this. And they're like, you've spent millions of dollars on this. You gotta go through with it.
She didn't pay a dowry. And we've already spent a lot of money. You gotta traipse her across the ocean. You gotta...
Henry made it clear that Anne would not be queen again. And, but there really, like I said earlier, there wasn't a long line of women lining up to marry the king. They were like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to risk getting my head chopped off. I don't want the scandal of a divorce.
Especially once, like, one wife getting her head cut off. It's like, well, she was a witch. Incest. Like, that was the law. But 2 of them?
Oh, God, I'm so tired. Okay.
Plus 3 divorces?
Yeah, so he does not have a good record when it comes to marriage, and women are kind of hesitant. They're like, I don't know that I want to do this. Like, being queen is not enough of a draw to be with Henry at this point. He's gross. And there's a very real possibility that it will end in death or divorce, and divorce at this time was humiliating.
Yeah.
So he made it clear, he's like, no, we're not doing that. So women, I don't know why in my notes I just saw the word underwear and I was like, why did I write that?
Why did you write that?
I was in my notes. It said Henry went through wives like he went through underwear, and women did not want to be killed or divorced.
But also they didn't wear underwear. So.
But for a second I was like, why did I write that? Anyway,
she probably wrote it in as a joke, and then she's not reading her notes as a joke. You know what I mean?
Well, I think I just wrote it as like
note to yourself.
Sometimes when I'm doing my notes, I find that I'm writing
almost like a script.
Almost not like a script. I find that sometimes when I'm writing it as if I was writing a paper. So sometimes in my notes I add things that I would think would be interesting to read.
Yeah.
Or like similes and stuff like that.
Sure.
Or metaphors, and I'm like, I don't need that. These are just my own personal notes that no one else is gonna see.
Yeah.
I don't need I don't know why I do that, but my notes are basically as if I was writing a paper.
All right, anyway, back on track. Katherine Parr.
Yeah, okay. So Henry at this point, I know we're talking a lot about Henry, but we'll get to Katherine, I promise.
There's Myrtle.
So Henry decides, instead of focusing on a marriage for himself, he decides to focus on marriage for his children. So he's trying to line up all of these women or all of these people for them to marry. I think Mary does something in France or something. She gets married, I don't know. Elizabeth is like, after what happened with Katherine Parr, she was like, I never want to get married.
Katherine Parr?
No, Katherine Howard, sorry. After what happened with Katherine Howard, she was like, I don't want to get married ever.
And also her mother was beheaded.
Yeah, everything that happened with her mother and the other wives, Elizabeth was like, I am not going to marry. And she never did. So I think Edward becomes betrothed to Mary Queen of Scots. I don't know if that's 100%, but I think that they, at least Henry wanted that to happen. I don't know that it actually ever does.
Because they're always trying to get Scotland under the control of England.
So Katherine Parr is said to be his most intelligent wife. She was very sober and somber and intelligent, and she had interests other than just being part of the court. Like
not as flirty and whatever as Anne or Katherine Howard. Mm-hmm. Not as stuffy and religious as Katherine. And not as stuffy and dour as
Jane.
Jane.
Yeah.
and Anne of Cleves too.
Yeah.
She's kind of like smart and funny, but also isn't just like in the house.
Yeah. She's very smart. She has a lot of ideas about religion and about the church and women's role. And she publishes like 2 or 3 books. She's the first English queen to ever be published.
Oh, that's fun. Go Katherine.
I know, right? So she was raised really religiously as a Catholic, and then she switched over to Protestantism.
Was that a requirement of if you're going to marry the king, you have to be Protestant?
No, because Henry's Catholic.
I mean, wait, is he still... he's Catholic, but he's still part of the Church of England.
Yes. So, and this will come into play later, but Henry basically...
That's also confusing.
Henry is still practicing Catholicism, even though England has broken from the church.
Just under the guise.
Yeah, even though he no longer listens to the Pope, he practices Catholicism. And I think England at this time is still pretty Catholic. I think it's not... I mean, some people are Protestant, but he... And I'll get to it later.
Sure. It's not like when Elizabeth...
Yeah. So, when Katherine was around 13, in 1526, she was married to an old man, Lord Borough, and he was around 63 years old at the time.
My eyes just rolled so hard.
At the time of their marriage. She became the stepmother to children who were older than she was.
Of course.
I think her oldest stepchild was 37.
And she's 15?
She was 13.
13?
So,
I thought you said 15.
No, 13.
Oh my god.
So she
I hate it here.
She becomes a wife to this old man.
Is it wife in name?
I don't know.
Okay. But she lives with him?
Yeah, they live together. She helps take care of the younger children, and she becomes friends with them.
How old is the youngest child?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. That'd be fun to know. 15.
But they, she becomes his caretaker. He's old. She takes care of him, basically. And then
What's the point of marrying her, then?
I don't know. She became friends with some of the children.
Sure.
She gets widowed for the first time at age 16.
Oh, damn. And she's also previously married, which is a no-no in the church.
So
they put that aside for... Okay. Well, yeah, well, so was Katherine.
I don't know. That's true.
They put that aside for Katherine as, like, a special circumstance. And had to go a whole bunch of rigmarole in order to do that.
So she's
Interesting.
Widowed at 16.
Ugh. Unless she got a bunch of money out of it. No,
they never had children.
Let's hope. Or, like...
No, they never had children. And then around 1530, she was proposed to by Lord Latimer of Snape Castle in Yorkshire, which I had to put in that it was Snape Castle because I just thought that was so funny. So that's in Yorkshire, which I think is north.
Yeah.
And then she was 18 at that time, and her new husband was in his late 30s. So that gap is changing.
Closing. And she's not 15 or 13. So yeah, she's probably gone through puberty.
Right? So she was widowed for 2 years, and even though she was widowed, she still didn't have money or means, so she couldn't live on her own, and she was 16.
Did she live with her stepkids?
I think she went back to live with her parents. I don't know who she lived with. That's not important. Anyway. So then her new husband, Latimer, and Latimer?
They do get married.
Latimer. They're married. They spent a lot of time at court, and she met Henry at this time. They were at court, and she met with Henry one-on-one to negotiate the release of her sister, or of her cousin George, who was in the Tower, because he was imprisoned, I think, for heresy or something. So she went to Henry, and she was like, hey, can we get my cousin out of jail?
Also, okay, I'm still hung up on the fact that she's married twice. There's not a third one, is there? Shut up! She's married more than twice!
So she is married.
I'm mind-boggled.
She gets her husband out of, or her cousin out of the Tower. Like, they release him.
I also know almost nothing about Katherine Parr. Like, I knew some about the other ones.
I feel like she is the one that's least often talked about.
Because nothing scandalous happened. He just dies.
Yeah, nothing scandalous happened. She's not as good looking as
Which I think is she's not as... If she's so smart and she's been published, how are we...
Yeah.
Patriarchy.
She's not as pretty as Anne. She's not as ugly as Anne of Cleves. She's not his one true love like Jane. She's not as promiscuous as the second Katherine. And she's not his longest wife like the first Katherine. So she's kind of just like...
Forgotten.
Yeah.
She's only like that one line in a rhyme. That's like crazy.
So by 1543, so this is about 13, they were married for about 13 years.
Her and Latimer?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of...
So...
Do they have children?
They never had kids. So around 1530...
Did he have children prior to her?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, so 1543 in February, Catherine's husband Latimer becomes in poor health. And Henry, by this point, had set his sights on Katherine. He's like, she's pretty, she's smart.
She's pretty, but not too pretty.
Yeah. She's pretty and smart, and she has a good head on her shoulders, and she, like, talks to him. Like, they have conversations. And then Henry starts giving...
Also, that's, like, a ballsy move.
Yeah.
To be talking to the king and
I
being
don't think
a smart,
it was,
well-read woman.
I don't think they were, like... I don't think anything nefarious was going on.
No, I don't think... Like,
she did meet with him personally to, like, release her cousin. So they were, like, they talked politics and stuff.
That's crazy.
So then, around the same time, Henry starts giving Katherine expensive gifts, like brand new gowns, and she's still married at the time. Her husband is around.
But also, are you going to say no to the king?
Right,
like,
new
what
gifts
is the husband
and all of
do?
this stuff. The husband dies, probably of a fever or some kind of illness that they get.
Cholera.
She's 31. So
Okay.
she's our age now.
Yeah.
So she's 31.
And has had 2 husbands?
She's had 2 husbands, no children. She's been widowed twice.
That's nonsense.
So she starts a romance with Thomas Seymour, who I believe is Jane's brother. Yeah, Jane's brother.
Which, she's divorced, so affairs are not... Or she's widowed.
She's widowed.
So people are less interested in what she's doing behind the scenes. They still care, but it's a little easier to get around that.
When you're widowed, you're not a maiden. So
and there's a lot more freedoms.
You can have more freedoms. You can live alone. You can have your own estate. And things like that. You can have relationships. I don't know that they just kind of start a flirtation of romance, but I don't know that it's like heavy romance. And I don't know if there's anything untoward going on. Meanwhile,
be untoward,
I know,
because she's a widow.
I just wanted to say untoward.
Okay.
Anyway, so she starts kind of hanging out with Jane Seymour's brother, Thomas. Catherine's brother at the time is trying to divorce his wife.
Is his name Thomas?
I don't know what his name is. Could be, because her dad's name is Thomas.
No, that's what I'm saying.
He's trying to divorce his wife because his wife,
is it
he
her
wants,
mother?
No.
Okay.
So Catherine's brother is trying to divorce his wife.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant her father. Okay.
On the grounds, her mom and dad are dead, I think. So he's trying to divorce his wife, so her sister-in-law, on the grounds of adultery, and he's trying to have her executed because she ran off and married another man. They ran off and eloped.
Okay, that's also extremely ballsy because unless she ran to, like, the continent or somewhere outside of England, like, if she stayed in England, girl.
So
there's also a precedent set by Anne Boleyn about beheading wives.
Yeah. So the brother is trying to get his wife to be executed as punishment for her adultery. And Katherine goes to Henry again, one-on-one. She goes, hey, please don't kill my sister-in-law. Grant the divorce, because I think the king has to be the one to grant the divorce.
Because the Pope is no longer involved.
He's like, please keep, like, save her life, like, grant the divorce, let her live her life, don't behead her. And he goes, okay, cool, anything for you, my darling, because he's like, he wants her at this point. And then Henry sees that Thomas and Katherine are, like, friendly on the side. I want to say, I want to say maybe there was an engagement between the two, or talks of an engagement, but I don't know that for sure. So Thomas Seymour is sent away from court. He's sent to the Netherlands, Burgundia. He's sent to the Low Countries, which is the Netherlands. He's sent there as an ambassador.
Which is the best way to send someone off without causing scandal.
Yeah. So he's sent away, and then...
Also, I know that you're talking loud for the video, but my ears are ringing.
My ears are ringing too. I'm not trying to talk, like... I'm trying to talk loud.
I know we're trying to talk loud so they can hear
me.
us, but my ears are like, oh my god, she's talking so loud.
My ears are also ringing, and my throat is so dry. I should have brought some water in here. So I'm trying to, like, talk quickly. There's nothing in there. I'm trying to get through this fast so that I can,
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, sidetrack.
Anyway, So he's 52 at the time, Henry. He's 52. He's just, nobody wants to marry him. He's a sad old man.
And how is he not? I mean, he's probably not pushing too hard to marry her right away because she's probably in mourning for at least a while when her second husband dies.
Yeah. I think it's like, I want to say 4 months, but I don't think that's right. Okay. Anyway, so he's 52. She doesn't really want to marry him, but she can't say no. She's like, fine, I'll marry you. I don't think that she didn't like him or I think she just didn't want to be married to him. I don't think...
I mean, this poor girl's already been married twice. She spent the majority of her life married.
Yeah.
Which is not... yes, most people will spend the majority of their life, but she was married at 13.
She's been married twice already.
Yeah.
And when she was young and she had that 2 years between when her first husband died and she got married again, she didn't have the freedoms that a widow usually has. She was a child. She was a kid. So she marries a king, and then she writes, like I said, a couple of theological views.
Hold on, I thought you said she got married more between Vladimir and Henry.
No, I said she got married more than twice.
Oh, because you were including him. Okay, you made it seem like it was going to be more scandalous.
Well, I'm not done.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so then in 1547, she's published for the first time.
That's awesome.
And she writes
under a pseudonym, or
no? I think she's published under her own name. I think she was published 2 or 3 times, and they're all religious texts, like how women should be involved in religion, and things like that. She's the first English queen to be published.
That's cool.
She was very vocal about theological views. She was also passionate about fixing Henry's relationship with his children, because as far as I'm aware, as far as I remember, the girls didn't speak to Henry.
No. He had sent them away. And Mary's an adult, so Mary's probably outliving her life. He sent Elizabeth away, immediately upon...
And she, by this point, I think is
probably an adult. I wonder where she's living, though, because she can't be living on her own.
She lives with, a duchess or something.
Okay.
So, she wants to fix the relationship with the children. And eventually, I think that they see the children more, and they might, reconcile in letters and stuff.
Bring them to the court.
Yeah. But I don't know that anything really major happens with that. He killed he killed Elizabeth's mother.
Yeah, you can't really come back from that.
Some resentment from that.
Yeah.
And she had found friendship. They had both found friendship with various stepmothers, and then he would either kill them or divorce them. So
yeah. Okay.
So then in 1545, Henry fell ill. He began having issues with his health, and his legs were in pain a lot. So by this time, he's immobile. He's probably impotent. He's just not doing well generally. And the king becomes. So he's pretty much bedridden at this time, and Katherine is speaking out against Catholicism, and she is a little bit heretical at this time. So the king becomes nervous that Katherine was a heretic, because he is very much still a Catholic, even though they technically separated from the church.
He's a Catholic in everything but name.
Yeah. So Katherine, and she was very Protestant, so she was very open about her theological views. When did she become
Protestant? Wmore after learning and her writing her...
I don't know. I think it was when she was still a child. Or, maybe a young adult.
Kind of as she was growing in her 20s.
Yeah, it was before she got with Henry. So, he basically had his people draw up an arrest warrant for the queen to be charged with heresy. And heresy, if you don't know, is just basically going against the church. And so he has an arrest warrant drawn up for her to be arrested.
Also the irony, he broke from the church.
Yeah. So
he literally stopped believing in the Pope. Not believing in the Pope, but
he stole power from the Pope and stole lands and stuff, and money from the Pope. Anyway.
That's funny.
So
Men, am I right?
A servant finds, so the story goes that the arrest warrant was dropped accidentally, and a servant found it and showed it to Katherine, and she's like, shit, I gotta shut my mouth. So then she buttons up. She's like, no, I love the church. Church is great. So she stops talking about her religion, and she stops, and he's like,
okay, hold on. I love to talk. I'm not talking this damn thing you ever saw.
Yeah. So she stops talking about it, and he kind of forgets that he kind of forgets about this part.
He's been having a lot of cognitive issues.
Yeah.
And people think or speculate that it could be when he got hit with that lance.
Or when he was knocked unconscious.
Unconscious with because he was hit by a lance and fell off the horse. That maybe at that point, cognitively something wasn't, or like has had some kind of damage to his brain. And he's been different ever since.
Yeah. So, okay, when did they get married again? I want to see. 45? I don't remember when they got married, but
seems about right.
He was also just in a great deal of pain. Only a few members of his council were even allowed to see him. Like, he was, for the most part, kept away from society. And then in January of 1547, Henry died at the age of 55. So Katherine took time after his death to mourn. She didn't attend the funeral because women were not allowed to attend the king's funeral.
Oh.
So she didn't attend the funeral. I don't think his kids went. Maybe Edward went.
Edward's still... oh, wait, no, he's about 10 now.
He's 10. And then only 4 months after the king died, which is very scandalous, she marries Thomas Seymour.
Love that.
He comes back
and you
from
would think
the lowlands.
Because he's a king. Okay, so in general, the mourning period is like
6 months to a year.
Yeah. And it's like 3 months of heavy mourning where you only wear black, and then 3 months of like a lighter mourning, and then maybe even a lighter mourning. She does 4 months and then gets married again.
So they knew that this would be scandalous because Thomas comes back, they get married, and then
have they been corresponding this whole time?
I don't know. But they don't tell anyone for months that they got married.
I wouldn't.
They hide that shit for months.
Locked down.
And at this point, Lady Jane Grey, who is, I think she's a nephew of Henry, or a niece of Henry through his sister, but she becomes a ward of Katherine at this time.
Interesting.
So Katherine is kind of taking care of Lady Jane Grey. And then shortly after she was married, Katherine becomes pregnant at the age of 35. So all 3 of her other marriages, not a single child, not a single pregnancy, no miscarriage,
and
nothing.
then she becomes pregnant in a geriatric pregnancy.
Mere months after she gets married.
Okay, those other men, she probably wasn't even at puberty at 13. Her second husband, potentially, but I wonder, since he'd already had kids, if their marriage was in name only.
Right? Well, because all of
Was he secretly gay and he just needed a wife for a beard?
Maybe it was a lavender marriage? I don't know. So she gets pregnant at the age of 35.
That's insane.
In August of 1548, she gives birth to a daughter. They name her Mary after Mary, Henry's daughter.
Oh, really? It's not after Mary Magdalene? Or Magdalene.
No.
Mary, Queen Mother or whatever?
No, so they marry her, or they call her Mary after I guess it wouldn't be stepsister, because they never...
Stepdaughter.
Yeah, stepdaughter. So, this was the only biological child she had, but she had many, many stepchildren. I don't know how many, but she had a lot. She was married 4 times.
That's so interesting. Okay.
And then Thomas Seymour was starting to try and get Elizabeth at this time. He was like flirting
Her husband?
Yeah. So
prior to them being married or at the time of their marriage?
During Catherine's marriage to Thomas Seymour.
And she's already had his baby.
She has his kid, or she's pregnant, has a kid, and Seymour is like trying to get it with Elizabeth.
Because he thinks he can be king.
So, and Elizabeth was like, I don't know how the Elizabeth thing happened, but they started hanging out. Or like, I don't know, he wants to hang out. I'm not sure what happens.
We'll probably at some point Katherine or Elizabeth could be several episodes. So we might do at one point that. But for right now, we'll take a break from Tudors.
In August of 54, she has the baby. In September of 1548, Katherine died from childbed fever.
Of course. I thought to myself in my head, I was like, 35? There's no way. Like, it's geriatric in today's standards. Mm-hmm. So back then, that's...
Yeah,
it would be amazing if she lived.
They didn't have the most sanitary practices.
Hadn't even started washing their hands.
Birth practices weren't very sanitary this time. So she died of childbirth shortly after the kid was born, like maybe a few weeks.
Girl or boy?
It was Mary.
Oh, that's right. She already said.
And then she was given the very first Protestant funeral in England.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fun. Who does Mary go to live with?
I think she stays with Thomas.
Oh,
with
I
the dad.
I forgot she had, like, her dad was.
But I feel like it's been a long time since I've read anything or, like, studied anything with Elizabeth. But I think Thomas Seymour is kind of around for a while, like, sniffing around Elizabeth for a while, maybe even after Catherine's death.
Who's her, like, the Master of Spies that's thought to that
Dudley?
she's been in a relationship with?
I think his name was Dudley. Last name was Dudley. Thomas Dudley. It's so many freaking Thomases.
I'm trying to. We have several books, and so I'm trying to see if I could just find one quick about her.
But yeah, so
I have to tell you, we have several books.
Queen Elizabeth she famously never married. She was nicknamed the Queen Virgin, or the Virgin Queen. But there are some rumors that she had some dalliances. But yeah, so Katherine died in 1548 in September, and they weren't married for very long, and they never had children. People think that maybe she was more of a caretaker for Henry because he had
started to
become
this poor girl
sick.
Two husbands she has to take care of. 3 because her husband died too. All this lady does.
Yeah, so she married the old grandpa, 60-something-year-old, and then
which is not old by our standards,
yeah,
but that was pretty
old
average.
For a 13-year-old. Gross.
Well, old for a 13-year-old, but also just
and then her second marriage, he died.
Yep.
And she had to take care of him. And then Henry died, and she had to take care of him on his sickbed. He probably had a lot of people to do that for him.
Doctors and
she probably wasn't taking that much care of him, but and then she passed away for her one pregnancy. Out of 4 marriages, she has 1 pregnancy.
And she dies of childbirth.
And she dies of childbirth at 35.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the end of Henry's wives. So then after that,
Edward is king.
Edward becomes king.
We talked about that kind of in
Jane's
video
episode.
At the end, we talk about him and kind of his short reign. He's only king for 5 years.
Yeah.
He dies.
And then Lady Jane Grey, who was a cousin, it was his sister. It was Henry's sister Mary. Her daughter. No, she had a daughter Frances, who had a daughter Jane. So it was like
Henry's great niece.
Yeah. So she's queen for like 9 days, and then
because we're not going to talk about her here, maybe I'll do like a little short, just like a really quick short on YouTube that talks about it.
About Lady Jane.
About Lady Grey. And just, it's very short. She's not, again, she's queen for 7 days.
I think it's like 9 days.
9 days.
And then Mary becomes queen, and then she dies without an heir. So Elizabeth becomes queen. She reigns for quite a while. She dies without an heir, and her throne goes to James the 6th of Scotland, 1st of England, and he is a descendant of Henry's other sister Margaret, a couple generations down.
Yeah. So I mean, eventually we'll probably do episodes on Mary and Elizabeth and following those. Right now we'll probably take a break from this time period, maybe find some other things to talk about. But yeah, I'll work on tonight a short for YouTube about Jane.
Yeah,
because I do think her story is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. So that's all I had. It was, she was married 4 times.
I can't believe she was married twice before the king.
Yeah, she was a widower. She was a 2-time widower at 31.
That's
no. Yeah, of 31 years old, and 2 of her husbands had died.
That's insane to me. I did not know she was previously married, and I would not have guessed that she could be previously married before she was married to the king. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Yeah, and I got all of that from that same Allison Weir book that we've been talking about for pretty much the whole of this series.
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
I'll put a picture up and link, or like put the title in the
The only one that didn't was Katherine Howard, and that's only because I did it last minute at work and not here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's Katherine Parr. All of the wives, that's the end of the wives.
Plus, if you remember them by the short little rhyme, divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived.
Yeah.
So, Katherine, Anne, Jane, Anne, Katherine.
Yeah. All the freaking Catherines, all the Annes.
So many of
At least we got Jane in there for a little bit of diversity.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
yeah, that's all I have.
that's it. If you have suggestions or topics you want us to cover, put them in the below.
Yeah.
In the
Comments. Like, subscribe, send it to your friends, do all the things.
They're also on Spotify if you want to listen and not watch it. They are on there. This will probably be going up on Spotify tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll edit it tonight or tomorrow, depending on how I feel after this. But we'll edit it and it'll go up, and then you guys can see it. So,
all right,
that's all I've got.
until we meet again.
Bye.